I have a lot of whips that I would like to finish. You can see my whip table full of projects that I would like to get done. My first whip is one that I was working on in my bingo projects video. And this is the Burgos Vest by Rosa Pomar. Last I showed this to you, I was about to finish the left front, and since then I have joined the front and the back together. So now I'm working just back and forth across the back and the fronts. So I have finished the entire yoke and I'm just working on the body. And because this is a vest, there won't be any sleeves. So I'm actually pretty close on this one. I mean, the body is going to be quite a lot of knitting, but since it's stripes, it's just really fun to knit. This is using all stash yarn. Most of them are just scraps that I had, and I'm holding everything together with this Knit Picks Aloft mohair that I also had in my stash. So this is entirely a stash and mostly scrap project that I am using to cross off 2 squares on my bingo card this year. So I just got started on the body, and for the main color for all of the ribbing and the edges, I'm using this universal yarn. It's called Uni Merino, and it's just a basic cool toned cream that I thought worked well with the rest of these colors. So that's the plan for my whip number 1. Whip number 2 is a spinning project, and that is to finish my Tour de Fleece sweater spin. I have multiple videos about this sweater spin because I spun the bulk of it during Tour de Fleece. So all of my Tour de Fleece vlogs show me working on this project. The first one is when I figured out what project I wanted and I put all of the fiber together and came up with this combo spin. So if you want to know exactly how I did that, you can watch that. But I also have all of the fiber that I'm using listed on my Ravelry project page. So a quick recap. I have spun these 3 skeins so far. These are for the body of the sweater, and then I'm working on the fiber for the sleeves, which I'm keeping separate because I prepped them a little differently so that the color changes would be shorter to match the body. So I have completed 1 bobbin and I'm working on the second bobbin, and these are the 2 bobbins that I'm going to ply together. And I have 43 grams left of fiber to spin. So it's not very much, but I just wanted to document this process. So I've kind of been sitting on this for a while until I could get back to it. I would say that I'm most motivated to work on this project because I'm just so excited to finish the sweater spin. I cannot describe to you the satisfaction of knitting a sweater with your own hand spun. If you've done it, you understand. But it's just one of the most satisfying types of projects to work on. And that's all I can say. It's just a lot of fun. I'm so excited. I'm very close to being done with the second bobbin. Then I will ply them together and we'll go from there. And my last whip is a pair of socks. This is a cuff down sport weight sock that I'm knitting from this Zabraball Stark 6. And this is in the colorway 2516. And this is a fun project because I'm knitting these to test out a cuff down Flegel heel. The Flegel heel is one of my favorite heels, especially for color changing yarn. And the pattern only tells you how to do it toe up, which is great, but I sometimes like knitting my socks cuff down. So I reversed the toe up Flegel heel, and here is what it looks like. It is so similar to the toe up. So I would like to finish this pair of socks because I want to use this as my test pair to write a pattern for a cuff down Flegel heel. I haven't decided exactly what that's going to look like, if I'm going to write a sock pattern that incorporates the Flegel heel or if I'm just going to write how to do the Flegel heel cuff down. So I need to figure all of that out, and in the meantime I definitely want to finish this pair of socks. So you're just gonna come on this journey with me as I figure this out. I hope that sounds good to you, and let's get to it. I am going to start with the Burgos vest. As I mentioned, I just joined the fronts to the back, so I'm working back and forth on the body now. One thing about working this pattern in stripes is that when I did my joining row, one of the fronts had one fewer rows than it needed in order for my stripes to line up. So I had to work that row and then join everything together. I don't know if this is because I messed it up or if it's just the way the pattern is written, because it's not written for stripes. She does color blocking, which is a little bit different, and she does explain how to do that, but the pattern doesn't account for doing 4-row stripes like I am. So yeah, I'm not sure if that is just a little quirk of the pattern that you have to adjust to, or if that was something that I messed up. I could go back and check, but at this point, I just want to keep working on this. I did go back and check because I am a freak, and yes, this is written into the pattern. So if you're doing stripes, just be aware of that and make some more progress. So that's what I'm gonna do. Just working back and forth, and the slowest part about it is just that I'm weaving my ends in as I go, which is an awesome thing to do if you don't like weaving in your ends. So I'm going to start working on this. I'm gonna work on it for, I don't know, anywhere from an hour, maybe 2 hours, and then I'll report back and show you where I'm at. It's been just about 2 hours, and I got 3 stripes done. If I knit it to pattern, I will be knitting 40 rows for the body, which according to the row gauge is just over 6 inches. Normally that would be a little too short for me, but because the arm side is so deep, the 6-ish inches and then with the ribbing added onto that might be a good length on me. So I'm of course going to try it on to figure out what length I want. But it's looking really good. I'm still really excited about these colors. Somebody commented that it reminds them of a sunset, and I think that's really nice. So I will keep working on this, and I will be back when I reach the length that I want. I knit this too long. I got into a groove and I kept knitting. I just kept knitting because I wanted to finish the next repeat. My striping sequence starts with the teal stripe and ends with the pink stripe. So when I got to this pink stripe, I felt like it wasn't quite long enough and I wanted to do one more repeat. The pattern says to stop at this orange stripe. So that is the length if I stick to the pattern, and like maybe it's right because obviously the arm size are very deep. Like I could do the armhole ribbing and then check the length and see if that affected it, but I don't think it's really going to affect it too much. It might pull it up ever so slightly, but then I'm gonna have ribbing down here and like where it currently hits is at the widest part of my hips. But if you know, you know. It's just gonna be cuter if it's cropped. And that is the style of the vest, and that is what I was going for. I just kept knitting. To be honest, it has taken me a few days to gain the fortitude to put on hard pants to try this on and really assess the length. So I've had some time to think about it, and I've decided I'm going to rip back to the last teal stripe that I did. That also happens to be the very last of that color yarn because I used it to knit the shoulders, so I used a little bit more than the rest of the colors. I think ending with the teal stripe is going to be a good anchor at the bottom of the sweater, and it's also going to contrast nicely with my ribbing yarn. Plus, if I ended it at the orange stripe, I think it would be too cropped on me. I've started to like my garments a little bit longer than I used to. I used to like the ultra cropped style, and I now like more of a full length style, but full length to me is still like at the top of my hips. But right now where it hits me is just like, it's not my favorite. Okay, I think the length was the right decision. I haven't put the button band on, so I've only done the hem and the armholes, but I think the armholes look really good. Obviously it's not blocked, it's not completely finished, but I think overall like that's a really good depth. And it's a little bit hard to tell when it hasn't been blocked and I can't button it. You know, it's not finished. The edges obviously want to curl in, but I do think the length is like exactly what I wanted. Here's kind of a shot of the back. I mean, I think it just hits me at like a good kind of full length without being too long. So yeah, I am quite excited to add the button band. I'm excited to see it come together because I think it's really hard to judge a sweater before you put all the finishings on. But I just wanted to show you, like, this is where I'm at, and I am really liking this so far. Oh, I also want to say I did modify the armhole ribbing a little bit. Actually, all of the ribbing. I added a row first and foremost, so it's a little bit longer than it is in the pattern. And then for the armholes, so in the pattern it has you picking up a certain amount of stitches and then decreasing out a certain amount of stitches. What I ended up doing, and I think I did the armholes about 4 times, I ended up just picking up the number of stitches that you're supposed to have when you bind off. So I picked up fewer stitches, but I didn't do any decreases. And I feel like it worked out fine. And I think I like it a little bit more than the first time I did it when I followed the pattern. All right, I'm now going to pick up all of these stitches. Yay. Okay, I picked up all the stitches. They are scrunched up on my needle. Not too bad though. I thought this needle was gonna be like way too short, but it's actually pretty manageable. I just did the first row and now I'm doing the rows before you start the buttonholes. I haven't figured out what buttons I want to put on this. I haven't really thought about it yet. I don't own any buttons. I don't have like a button collection to pull from, so I will need to buy some. I feel like the play is just some simple like plastic or like resin or, you know, some material like that. Buttons that are in a similar color to my main color just to kind of blend in. But I could also search around and see if there are some more interesting buttons. I really like wood buttons. I just don't know if that's the vibe for this. So I need to like think on it and figure out what's going to look the best. Okay, I'm just gonna keep working on this and I'll be back when I'm done. I finished my vest. Well, almost. I still have to put buttons on it, but it is fully blocked. This turned out so much better than I even expected it to. I will show you this better once it's fully done, but I think it looks really nice. I think the length is great. It blocked out nicely. I still need to finish trimming some of the ends, but they're all woven in. And I really like how the ribbing turned out. I ended up running out of the mohair, sort of. I knit the hem ribbing first and I held it with the mohair, and then I got nervous about how much I had left. I don't know, like maybe I could have gotten the rest of the ribbing out of the mohair, but I decided to just leave it out and just hold the 2 strands of fingering for the arm side and the button band. And I feel like that was the right decision. And I probably would have gone back and re-knit the bottom ribbing without the mohair just so that they're all cohesive. But I just kind of ran out of steam with it and wanted to finish it. And I don't think it's that noticeable, / I am not that bothered by it. So I just decided to make this decision and I feel okay about it. Okay, the last thing I need to do is put on the buttons, and I did order some. I ordered 2 options. I'm pretty certain I know which one I'm gonna go with though. So the first option are these stained dark brown buttons. The second option are these silver metallic buttons. They're a little bit smaller, but I think both sizes will work with the buttonholes that I have. So here are the brown buttons. I think they're a little too stark. I wanted to go with a dark brown to really give a contrast, just to see if I liked that, but I don't think I do. And here are the silver buttons, which is what I'm pretty sure I will end up putting on the vest. I like how they kind of blend in with the yarn, but they're still interesting because they're metallic. And I hadn't really seen these before. I hadn't thought of them as an option, but I got all these buttons from La Mercerie, which is a yarn store out of Bainbridge Island near Seattle, Washington. I would expect a yarn shop to price up their buttons a little bit, at least more than like a sewing shop or a fabric shop. But I actually didn't find that to be the case with La Mercerie. I found all of their button pricing to be very reasonable and comparable to other stores that I was looking at. And they have a great selection. I got quite a few other ones. I spent like $30 on buttons for another project that I'm working on. But yeah, I think I'm gonna go with the silver. It looks nice. So BRB, I'm gonna go watch a tutorial on how to place buttons well. I do it so infrequently that I always have to look it up just to make sure that I'm doing it correctly. So I'm gonna go do that and sew on my buttons, and I'll meet you back here to show you the finished vest. Here it is, all finished with the buttons on it. I think it turned out so cute. This is the first buttoned vest that I've made. Actually, I think it's the first vest that I've made, and I really like it. I know I'm years late on the vest trend, but I think they're still going strong. And there's just so many different ways to style them. I also like the way that it looks unbuttoned. I didn't think I was going to. I thought I was only going to wear it buttoned up. I don't know that I would wear it with this outfit unbuttoned, but I think it just lays really nicely. And I think with some jeans or maybe like some sort of poofy blouse, like I think leaving it open would look really nice. I wanted to show you several different outfits and ways that I would style this, but to be honest, I'm in a bit of a wardrobe transition right now, and I'm just very slowly accumulating new items that fit me and that are my style. So I don't necessarily have the fits that I would wear with this at the moment, but I loved this pattern. I will definitely be looking at other Rosa Pomar patterns. It fits really nicely. I like the deep armholes. I think that's part of the look. And I'm not really having any issues with the ribbing wanting to either flip up or curl inward. The armhole ribbing does follow the curve of your body. So I think from some angles it might look like it's not flat, but it is. I also really like the buttons now that they're on. I followed a tutorial by Roxanne Richardson. She shows you how to place the buttons, which is quite simple, but she also shows you how to create a shank. I used a double pointed needle as a spacer, which is what she recommends, and that gives enough space for the other side of your button band to fit comfortably under the button so that it lays nice when you have it buttoned. And it also just adds stability to the buttons. So that's something that I've done for all of my cardigans, but I always like to look up the tutorial before just to like refresh on how to do it. And she has a lot of tips and stuff, so it's a great video. I'll link it below. If you are watching the latest season of Taskmaster, Anya, one of the contestants, always wears a vest. She has like a different vest on each week, and they always look so good. I'm so inspired by every vest that she wears, and I just can't wait to like watch the next episode and see what vest she's wearing. So that is the Burgos vest by Rosa Pomar. Next, I'm getting started on my sweater spin. I'm spinning this skein on my Ashford eSpinner 3 that I bought secondhand during Tour de Fleece, and I mentioned that I would give an update on how it's going. And as you can see, I do struggle with the tension a bit. I am still figuring it out, and once I'm able to get into a groove with it, I like it, but I'm still adjusting some things. I'm spinning this yarn as a 2-ply DK weight, so I'm aiming for my singles to be around 25 wraps per inch, and then once it blooms after I soak it, I'll get something close to 11 wraps per inch. And I'm using a short forward draft since all of my fiber is combed top. I had a lot of fun putting the colors together for this combo spin. Everything I used was from my stash, and some of the braids felt a little bit outside of what I would normally combine, but I had a feeling it was going to work and I trusted my gut. And now that I've spun it up, I really like it. There's not a color that I would have chosen not to include. And that's one of the fun things about learning a hobby, is just trying something that you think could turn out but you're not 100% sure, and seeing what happens. In this combo spin, I am spinning together Falkland Merino, Cormo, South American wool, and Polworth, which kind of sounded like a lot of different fiber types to combine when I was looking at all of them laid out on my table. But now that I've tried it, I really like how all of them mesh together to form one very squishy, plump yarn that is very soft. All of the fibers on their own are soft, and so it makes sense that they would combine to create a very soft yarn, but I really like the way it turned out. So I'm just continuing to spin, paying close attention to the way that I'm drafting to stay consistent. It's true that practice is what will make you better at spinning, but I find still, even almost 3 years in, that if I get lazy about my technique, then I'm not going to produce a consistent yarn. My grist will be off. So I really like to keep an eye on my drafting. And because of that, I typically listen to things while I spin. It's a really nice time to listen to a book. I occasionally will watch something, especially if it's like YouTube, where I don't have to look up very often. But I really like to make sure that I can look at what I'm doing. All right, I just spun about 10 grams. Here is what my bobbin is looking like at the moment. And I think I'm going to take a break for dinner. I probably will continue spinning tonight. I feel like I'm on a roll with it, and I could definitely finish spinning the rest of the 34 grams tonight, but I'm not sure if I will, so we'll see where the night takes me. Last night, I got really motivated and I finished spinning my singles. These are kind of hard to hold in one hand, but here are my 2 bobbins that I'm going to ply together. The one that I just finished is looking a little bit bigger. All I'll need to do is make a plying bracelet, so it's not that big of a deal, but the only way to know is to ply them together and see how much I have left. There's really no point in weighing them at this point because I weighed the fiber before I started spinning, so this is just a matter of not spinning extremely consistently, but who does? We're hand spinners, we're not machines. So now I'm gonna get to plying this together. I'm very interested to see how this skein is different from my other skeins because, as I mentioned earlier, this is for the sleeves, so the color changes are much shorter on this skein. That took forever. It is about 2 hours later. I decided to ply on my EEW6. Love this thing. And here is how far I got before I ran out of my second bobbin. Pretty good, honestly. This is about how much leftover I expected to have just based on the way the bobbins looked. But I'm gonna take a break before I do my plying bracelet because once I start that, I'm kind of locked in. This bobbin is so pretty, and so is the skein. It's so fun to see like how the skein changes as I'm plying because there are so many colors in here. So I'm excited to skein this up, but like I said, I'm gonna take a little break because I've just been sitting in the same spot for 2 hours. Oh, hi. guess who finally finished plying? Making a plying bracelet is really not that bad. I just kept putting it off for a couple of days. I don't know why, but I did want to share a tip when you are making a plying bracelet. You don't have to cut off the circulation in your middle finger. I have made quite a few plying bracelets where I couldn't feel my hand anymore. You don't have to do that. Once you get to a point where you're putting strain on your hand, you can just take the bracelet off your finger, put it on your wrist as if you're going to ply, and then continue winding and making another bracelet. And you can keep doing that over and over. This is something that I'm guessing most of us who have been making the plying bracelets and killing our fingers knew we could do, but the act of actually trying it was too risky because we worked so hard on our singles. So I'm here to just confirm that you can do that. It works exactly the same way and you don't have to hurt your hand. But anyway, here's how my bobbin turned out. So I'm very excited to get this skeined up and in the bath, and then I can compare it to my other skeins. But already just looking at it on the bobbin, I am noticing the shorter color changes, so that's pretty cool. Here is the final skein. This one turned out so interesting in a good way. It is subtly different. I grabbed a couple of my other skeins from this spin. So these are 2 skeins for the body of the sweater, and these 2 turned out quite different. The third one I have is closer to this one, but you can see that they're just a lot more color blocky. There's a lot more bits of solid colors throughout, whereas this one barely has any large chunks of solid color. There's some peach and a little bit of blue there and some pink, but for the most part it is very dispersed throughout. So I think that's so interesting. It's very clearly part of the set still, but I think it's gonna work really well for the sleeves. And just to show you all of the skeins, here is my entire sweater spin. So I haven't done any of the stats yet for this, and I'm gonna do it right now to show you how I like to figure it all out. It's nothing special, but here's what I like to do. So I have my skein. It is fully 100% dry, and visually it looks like it matches the other skeins as far as weight and grist, but we're gonna check it. Actually, looking through this one, I think it's ever so slightly thinner, at least in certain parts. And I can probably attribute that to having spun this skein several weeks after I spun the first 3. I had a very similar experience with my first sweater spin where I spun the yarn over a really long period of time because I made my first skein and then I started knitting and then I spun the second skein and then I knit with it. So I didn't spin everything up front and then start knitting. And you can tell that the final skeins that I spun were quite a bit thinner. Not quite a bit, just a little bit thinner. Relatively noticeably thinner. I don't think you can tell in the finished garment, but I could tell while I was knitting with it. So I think that just tends to be what happens when I spin, something to work on. But yeah, I just get a little bit thinner as I spin. So this was really fun to spin all of this, or most of this, during a short period of time because I have never done that before. And I really like how close I got. But okay, let's check this skein. The first thing I'm gonna do is take my wraps per inch card and just check a few strands. It's not 100% consistent, but I'm just gonna check a few strands and see kind of roughly what I seem to be getting. Okay, I am seeing in between 11 and 14 wraps per inch, which is what I got with my other skeins. So that's good. Now what I'm going to do, and I'm gonna do this on my table so that I get the most accurate measurement, but I'm going to measure with my fabric measuring tape all around the circumference of the skein. And I am going to be measuring on the outside of it. I will just drape it around, not too loose, not too tight. You know, it's not going to be perfect because there are varying lengths in here. The strands in the center are just going to be ever so slightly smaller in circumference than the strands on the outside. That's okay. Now I'm going to go do this on the table so that, again, I get the most accurate measurement I can, and I'll be right back. I measured 56 inches around, so now I'm going to count all of these strands, and yes, it takes a while to do this. So what I do is start somewhere where I've tied off the skein, and then I just count by 2, and I transfer the strands that I've counted to my right hand to keep track, and then I just count them all like that. I've also seen people use stitch markers to like partition off. So like I just counted 30 strands, so then I could add a locking stitch marker here to hold that while I count the rest. Okay, I got 295 strands. So I'm going to multiply that by 56, the number of inches of my skein circumference. That gives me 16,520. So that's how many inches of yarn I have. And then to get the yardage, we just multiply that by 36 because there's 36 inches in a yard. And I got 459 rounded up. I also like to weigh my skeins and track the weight. And I like to figure out the grist so that I can compare it to my other skeins and see how close I am. So now I'm gonna go weigh it. Okay, this is a hefty skein. This is 196 grams or 6.9 ounces, which is a little bit heavier than my other skeins, but this is also more yardage than my other skeins. So to figure out the grist or the yards per pound, I like to use ounces, but I'll tell you how to use grams as well. There are a few different ways to do this. This is, to me, the simplest, most straightforward way to do it. And that is to take your number of yards, so in my case, 459, and divide that by your ounces, so for me, 6.9, and then multiply that number by 16. I got 1,064 yards per pound. If you want to use grams instead of ounces, you do the same steps, but instead of multiplying by 16, you can multiply it by 453.592. And I will go ahead and do that calculation just so we can compare the accuracy of the two. And I got basically the exact same number. The decimal point is just a little bit lower, but it's a negligible amount. So the two methods are practically the same. Okay, now I want to compare my grist to my other skeins. This is always the scariest part for me. I tracked all of the stats, I just don't remember. Okay, so for my first skein, I got 1,016 yards per pound, so not too far off. My second skein, I got 1,047 yards per pound. And my last skein is a little bit thicker. I got 1,116 yards per pound. So the skein that I just finished is like right in the middle of all of that. I will always consider a discrepancy of about 100 yards per pound as a win. To me, that is pretty consistent. So then the last thing that I'll do is tag the skein, especially if I'm putting these skeins in storage. For these, I will probably start knitting with them pretty soon, but I can at least keep the tags and then I'll know for sure what my stats were. But I like to use these little strung marking tags. I just got them at like an office supply store, and they're just little tags on a string. I mean, you don't have to buy these, you can easily make them. And so I will just write the stats on this and attach it to the skein. And here's an example of the first one that I did. So that just shows you everything I like to keep track of. And I also like to keep track of this digitally because I am a digital person at heart, always have been. Always will be. So I keep track of everything in a notes app, and then I will go in and transfer that to a spreadsheet at some point so that I can track everything, like all of my end of year stats. But for the sake of knitting with this yarn, I do like to keep track of like which skein is which, because obviously I want to note that this is the skein for the sleeves. So that is everything, and this whip is done. We have made it to the final whip, which is my Flegel heel sock. And it actually goes this way since it is cuffed down. So here's where I'm at. Just as a reminder, I am very close to finishing the foot. So I'm about to start the toe. I have maybe an inch to knit on the foot. Here's another shot of the heel. It looks just like the toe up Flegel heel. While I finish knitting this, I am going to be thinking about like how I want to package this. I think I want to make a tutorial on how to do it. To go with the tutorial, I think it would be nice to have something written down. So I just need to figure out if I'm going to like write a pattern. I think if I do write a pattern, it will be just of the heel. So I don't think I would publish like a full sock pattern, but I would just explain how to do this heel in written instructions. So I just need to figure out like how I'm going to deliver this. I know a lot of people have expressed interest in it, and I think it would be really cool to just like put this out into the world. I just need to figure out like the best way to do that for people who are consuming this, and then also for me in like needing to maintain it. I don't know. I need to figure some things out. So I am going to finish this sock and think on it, and then I'll come back once I hopefully have some answers. I'm back and I finished my sock. So there it is in full. And I immediately cast on my second sock like the knitting saint that I am. And I just made it to the point where I'm about to start the heel. So here's how this one turned out. I just am continuing it from the Zauberball. So I'm not doing any color management, but here's a little comparison of the two. They don't match up at all, but that's fine. I was not expecting them to. So now that I've reached the point where I'm gonna start the heel, I am going to take notes while I knit it. I honestly don't necessarily need to, like I probably could just write the heel out right now, but I just wanna make sure that I'm not missing anything. It's just a good way to like check myself as I go. So I will be taking notes and writing out the instructions while I knit the heel, and then I will write the full pattern and grade it once I've knit the socks, and we'll go from there. But first we need to take a little beverage break because I need something cozy right now. And I have some apple cider in the fridge, non-alcoholic, but I'm gonna warm that up and that is going to be delicious and cozy.
Just like the breeze, you're not born to be wrong. I know the road is long, 'cause I know where to go, 'cause I wanna go.
Okay, I've just hit the halfway point, which means my sock heel looks like this. And everything up until this point is written down. So I'm gonna keep working on this. It is just about 9 p.m. and I'm getting a little bit sleepy. Probably time to call it soon for the night, but I'm gonna keep working on this for now while I feel motivated to do it. My spiced apple cider was delicious. I kind of want some more, but to be honest, I don't need more sugar. So yeah, this is my sock so far. I think it's really fun when it's at this stage because, I don't know, that just looks fun. Ta-da! These are freshly blocked. I finished them pretty quickly after I filmed the last clip because once I got the second part of the heel done and written, the rest of the foot went pretty quickly. I did have to reknit the toe because I held one sock up to the other sock to try to figure out the foot length, and I was watching a show and I was like, yeah, that looks right. And then I knit the toe, and then as soon as I started the Kitchener stitch, I was like, wait a second. Reader, it was not right. So I don't know, I'm always off when I just like hold a knitted fabric up to another knitted fabric to try to figure out if they're the same length. I should just stick to counting rows because that's the only way I know how to actually get an accurate length of knitted fabric. But anyway, they're exactly the same length now because I did count the rows, and same for the legs. But yeah, I think they turned out really nice. I love this colorway, and I am going to use these for the like pattern photo. I'm definitely going to be knitting more of this style. I mean, I love the Flegel heel, and I would say I probably do prefer a cuff down, even though it really just depends on the sock that I'm knitting. But I can definitely see myself knitting this heel a lot and experimenting with it, doing a contrast heel, using it for self-striping yarn. So you'll definitely be seeing more of these from me, but for now I'm just going to release this as the pattern photo. And speaking of the pattern, it is done now, and if you want to test it, let me know. I am doing sort of a very casual test knit. It's not really a test knit, but I just would like some other knitters to take a look at it and maybe knit the heel. You can put it in whatever sock pattern you want, just to make sure there aren't any errors or anything egregious. I've looked over it multiple times. I have knit a heel from my instructions. I knit like a little sample just to like test it out myself, but it's always nice to have other people look at your work before you release it. It's going to be a free pattern, and it's just the sock heel. So it's not a full sock pattern. But again, I just would like to have some eyes on it before I like officially release it. So if you would like a copy of the pattern to test and send me some feedback on, send me an email. My email address is in my bio on YouTube. And yeah, send me an email. Let me know that you want to test it. If you want some prompts as far as like what type of feedback I'm looking for, I'm happy to send that. But honestly, you can just send me whatever feedback you have about it. You can test any size. There are, I think, 12 sizes. I just confirmed there are 12 sizes, but it's dependent on the stitch count of your sock. So there are like basically 12 stitch counts. And the math is so simple that not every size needs to be like knit up because it's just mathematically going to work. But here is the heel again, if you want to just get a view of it. And that's the other side, which arguably is the slightly nicer side because it's the knit two togethers instead of the SSKs. So that's it. Those are all my whips. Thanks for hanging out with me these past couple weeks while I finished everything up. It was a great motivator to have you around. And now that I've finished some projects, I get to cast on new ones. So be on the lookout for that. More videos coming soon, and I'll see you then. Bye.